All right, welcome back to ABA exam review in our BCBA task list series. Today we're continuing concepts and principles with B4, positive and negative reinforcement contingencies. Our next video will be positive and negative punishment, and then we will do reinforcement schedules. So we're switching punishment and reinforcement schedules, but don't worry, we will get to them. It just makes more sense in this order. That being said, do not skip the basic videos. A huge mistake people make when they study for their BCBA or BCABA exam is they neglect the basics. And those are the fundamentals you need for all the other questions. Without the fundamentals, everything else is that much more harder. So do not neglect the basics. With that said, like, subscribe for all of our updates. Check out behavioranalyststudy.com for our study materials. When you pass, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. Let's get going. All right, B4, positive and negative reinforcement contingencies. The most fundamental of fundamental ideas in ABA. We build all our interventions around reinforcement. You can't have interventions without reinforcement. You must start with reinforcement. ABA is a reinforcement science, okay? So with that said, let's look at this Cooper chart, which is a nice little visual for what we're talking about. Because when we go to answer questions on positive and negative reinforcement, we're going to ask ourselves two things. What is the effect on future frequency of behavior? And then how did the stimulus change? Did we add or did we withdraw? So we know if the behavior increases, it's going to be reinforcement. If we present or add, it'll be positive. If we withdraw, decrease, take away, it'll be negative. Very straightforward, but you need to approach all reinforcement and punishment questions that way. Which way does the behavior move? Did we add or remove the stimulus? Combine, you get your answer. So when defining a stimulus in terms of reinforcing or punishing, what is the most important thing to consider? What do we need to consider above all else when we classify a stimulus as either reinforcing or punishing? Because we have preference assessments, right? Where we identify things clients like, they dislike, but that doesn't make it a reinforcer. So when we talk about reinforcers or punishers, what are we looking at? A, how that stimulus influences current behavior. Well, the error here is we aren't looking at current behavior. We're looking at future. So B, how that stimulus influences future behavior is what we're really looking for. C, is the stimulus liked or disliked by the learner? Doesn't matter. It only matters how it affects future behavior. And then D, is the learner aware of the stimulus? So what is that rule where it doesn't matter if you're aware or not? It's called automaticity of reinforcement, right? Reinforcement can occur. Consequences can occur whether you're aware of it or not. Your behavior can still change. So if we're looking at defining a stimulus, we're going to be looking at B. How does that stimulus influence future behavior? So positive reinforcement. Positive reinforcement, okay, occurs when a response is followed by the immediate presentation of a stimulus, which leads to similar responses occurring more in the future. What are our key ideas here? So it's a consequence, obviously. So it's following a response. It's the presentation. So we're adding a stimulus, positive, which leads to responses occurring more in the future. So reinforcement. And notice that it says similar responses. When you reinforce, you're not reinforcing one response. You're reinforcing a response class. All those response classes serve the same function because very rarely do responses all look the same. So we can't just say we're reinforcing a single response when the next response could look slightly different and serve the same purpose and still be affected by reinforcement. When we talk about immediacy, we're talking about contiguity, meaning when the response happens, you want the reinforcement, right, to happen as soon as possible. So closeness matters because if you wait 10 seconds, you might be reinforcing something completely different. Automaticity, the awareness of reinforcement. You don't have to be aware to be reinforced. And then again, we don't reinforce one response. We reinforce the response class. Each time you reinforce a response in a response class, that whole response class should get stronger in the future. So Eddie makes a funny face every time his teacher turns around, which makes his friends laugh out loud. The teacher then tells Eddie's friends to stop laughing. Eddie continues to make funny faces in the future. What changed Eddie's behavior? What are we looking at here? In behavior questions, you have to identify who and what you're looking at. There's a couple things going on. We're looking at Eddie's behavior. So what is Eddie doing? We're not too worried about the teacher and the friends. We're worried about Eddie. So Eddie makes a funny face when his teacher turns around, and his friends laugh out loud. The teacher tells Eddie's friends to stop laughing. It's not relevant to Eddie's behavior. What is the consequence for Eddie's behavior? The consequence for Eddie's behavior is his friends laughing out loud. Since Eddie continues to make funny faces in the future, what happened? Well, Eddie's behavior increased, so it was reinforced. His friends laughed out loud, so those were added, right? So we have positive reinforcement. Again, the teacher telling Eddie's friends to stop laughing is not the consequence controlling Eddie's behavior. Eddie making a funny face is the response. The consequence is his friends laughing out loud. So in the future, Eddie continues to make funny faces in the future, meaning we've positively reinforced Eddie's behavior. And then negative reinforcement. Same idea, except now we have a removal, okay? It still leads to types of responses occurring more, so we're still increasing, but now we're removing stimulus, right? That's the key for negative, the removal. So think escape or avoidance maintain behavior. Why is escape behavior maintained? Well, they get out of doing something, right? Why is avoidance maintained? Well, that something is removed, okay? The potential presentation is removed, or if you're escaping, the actual thing is removed literally, okay? So when you think negative, think escape or avoidance maintain behavior. Aversive stimuli, when terminated, often result in negative reinforcement. So it doesn't matter if they like it or not. However, when it is aversive, it does often result in negative reinforcement for obvious reasons, right? If you have an aversive stimuli, a loud beeping in your ear, you're going to respond in a way that gets rid of that loud beeping, right? If you have let's say a fire alarm going off in your house, you're going to start working to get that fire alarm to stop beeping, okay? And once you remove that beep, that behavior is reinforced in the future. So you go out drinking with your friends and wake up with a massive headache. You take 2 Advil and the headache starts to slowly go away. You now take Advil in the future. Why? So let's break it down. What is the antecedent? The antecedent is not you take 2 Advil. The antecedent is the headache. The behavior is you take 2 Advil. The consequence, the headache goes away. A lot of people want to say taking the Advil is the antecedent. It's not the antecedent. The antecedent is the headache. The response or the behavior is you take 2 Advil. The consequence, the headache goes away. So headache is decreased, okay, minused, right? And now in the future, you take more Advil. So your behavior decreases. Negative reinforcement, right? See that? Negative reinforcement. The other really famous example is the mosquito bite, right? You itch the mosquito bite, so on and so forth. Finally, when you're answering reinforcement questions, did the behavior increase in the future? If that behavior went up, right, it's reinforcement. Okay. What about was something added or taken away? Positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement. Identify the behavior and the consequence first, because the consequence affects that future behavior. Okay. Good. All right. Again, next video will be positive and negative punishment, and then we'll continue with our reinforcement schedules. So just flipping those 2 around. Don't skip the basics. The basics are super, super important. Check out behavioranalyst.com. If you are enjoying these, please, please, please share. We love word of mouth. As always, let us know when you pass so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. See you soon.